Hello, everyone. It has been quite a long time since I narrated an inspirational program on enliven your existence. Writing psychology related topics is my passion, and this is one of the subjects I thrive on, which aligns with my qualifications, consistent knowledge, and skills as well as dedication. It is my human right to publish on social media or wherever I intend to publish them. Whoever values them may view it. There is no forcibility whatsoever. Moreover, I do not mean to offend any individual's beliefs or personality traits with my writings or postings. In today's episode, it's a discussion of suffering or suffocation, the ultimate status of human distress, but has many reasons laying underneath. So let's discuss the root causes of suffering as to how the primary emotional stages of humans develop to harmful stages of emotions and how they connect to link with suffocation. Humans are hardwired with both positive and negative emotions from evolution, since they serve specific adaptive function for survival and reproduction. For instance, emotions related to forming a bond led early humans to seek mates and reproduce, while emotions like fear compelled them to fight or flee from danger. However, humans, like other species, have more tendency towards negative bias or emotions, such as fear, as I mentioned above. Let's take further examples. We experience in our day to day life the negative emotions such as hurt, disgust, anger, and sadness, though they are unpleasant but critical for survival, which alert us to threats and trigger a response that increases the chances of staying alive, prioritizing our purpose over pleasure. However, these negative feedback loops are triggered by modern day pressure and competitions, even comparisons in destructive manner. These ancient wiring may cause or do more harm than good in the present social context, triggering them to an extreme level, contributing to issues in mental and physical illnesses when or if they are unattended, and primary innate negative emotions develop to negative secondary emotions such as resentment, shame, envy, jealousy, or shock, etc. However, when secondary emotions are not processed effectively, they develop into combination of several negative emotions, and if persist for a long period of time, they cause to obsessive circle of rumination and vengeful fantasies, which means a mental plotting that can provide a temporary sense of pleasure and control, helping alleviate the negative feeling of powerlessness and shame in order to achieve justice and reputation management, which may or may not lead to an act of revenge. In any case, if the circle of escalation initiates a reciprocal circle of retaliation, which is called a magnitude gap, the situation may become increasingly destructive. The transition from the defensive emotions to revenge is not automatic, but rather a process driven by psychological need to restore balance, which leads to a trap in ultimate suffocation with bitterness and resentment, causing loss of self of the person, resulting in blocking out other positive goals and aspirations in life, negative mental and physical health effects, etc. In whatever way, all emotions provide valuable insight about our internal and external state and the view of the world around us. Hence, emotional intelligence helps significantly for personal growth, recognizing, understanding, and managing the full spectrum of our own emotions as well as those of others. Furthermore, it is a proven concept of psychology that our emotions are contagious, where individuals mimic the emotions and behaviors to others. In this episode, we are going to discuss not about the positive emotions, but about the negative emotions. Their root causes on many perspectives as to how they have evolved to affect an individuals and their relationships and lead to suffocations in lives of the people. Negative adaptive emotions that are essentially constructive for survival are labeled as destructive, problematic, or stressful when we fail to identify and manage in the correct manner at the right time. Once resisted, mismanaged, or uncontrolled, or not guided properly, they become suppressed, long lasting, and expressed in an unhealthy, destructive manner. The emotional suffocations lead into various kinds of issues in person's lifespan, delivering deterioration. Let's take few examples. When our adaptive bad emotions get suppressed, the anger bottling up of a person and turns to rage-filled reaction as a maladaptive response, anxiety or depression, physical ailments, etc. Consuming mental, physical health, affecting the overall human connections and relationships. The perception of human suffering is not a singular uniform experience, but a multifaceted one, influenced by individual psychology, social context, biological and spiritual or philosophical beliefs. Let's take the psychological standpoint first. According to the psychological perspective, the negative emotions themselves are not the problem, but how we process and relate to them can cause suffering. When we take examples, we can say the unmet desires of an individual's childhood trauma, abuse, or neglect cause the individual stuck in repetitive negative thought patterns and behaviors linked to painful memory, which gradually leads to mental and physical anguish. Maladaptive coping strategies such as substance use, overeating, self isolation, trust issues, ingrained belief of questioning the self worth. I am unworthy person, no, I cannot trust anyone, all are the same, etc., which automatically affect the emotional regulation skills and enabling to manage one's emotions during the course of the developmental stages. So these root causes addresses the cognitive distortions which are linked with irrational biased thought patterns that twist reality. Everything is either good or bad. That means black or white, extremes of everything, either good, either bad, nothing in between. That is how their mentality would be. These negative thought patterns fuel negative emotions and create suffering and kill the motivation. For instance, an individual may say, I don't have motivation or enjoy anything. I feel everything is pointless. I don't want to make anyone happy. Why should I make anybody happy? Like that, they may say. Giving power to negative bias causes people to dwell on minor frustrations, discounting their many positive experiences and blessings, creating a skewed perception of reality. When it comes to biological perspective, our physical bodies and brain are deeply intertwined with our emotional states. When faced with threats such as fear or sadness, the body automatically releases stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol to prepare for fight or flight. Once the emotion is mismanaged, unidentified, or persisting for a long time after it has passed, it becomes chronic, depleting the brain chemicals needed for happiness, such as dopamine. It leads to a cascade of hormonal and neurological effects resulting from non transmitted diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetics, cholesterol, fatigue, stomach ulcers, and mental health conditions. It has been proved that certain emotional variations can influence brain development, wiring, and the regulation of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are associated with mood disorders. The environmental negative factors influence the individual to be a victim of trauma or chronic stress, which also has the potential to activate or deactivate expression of certain genes related to emotional well being or mental health and carry forward to offspring, their children. Philosophical and spiritual perspectives, the exploration of the root causes to suffering is evaluated on a more existential level beyond individual psychology or biology, as we spoke. For example, according to Buddhist teachings, there are three poisons which bring suffocation, dukkha, in the wheel of life, and root causes to samsara as ignorance, attachment, and hatred or aversion. Ignorance, moha, emphasizes lack of or no understanding of the reality, the attachment to false self ego, me and mine or I, the pride of self, fuels the other two attachment, raga, dwell on or clinging to things, people or materialistics, lead to constant disappointments and hatred. Dvesha as anger, envious, resentment, and jealousy, and perpetuates a circle of negativity. Several philosophical and New Age traditions attempt to explain the phenomena that continuity of consciousness that a person's soul carries over karmic imprints, memories, skills, fears, phobias, and resentment from one life to the next. The karmic law of cause and effect has a potential biological pathway for transformation, allowing experiences from one's present life history or even past life experiences influence the genetic and psychological landscape of the present. Some researchers have hypothesized that karmic tendencies or psychological predispositions could be transmitted through epigenetic modifications of DNA, connecting spiritual concepts with modern biological understanding, which opens the forum, emphasizing if we can be indifferent to pleasure or pain, understanding that we cannot control the genetic inheritance but can control the reaction to it. That is the key to managing suffering. Existentialists like Viktor Frankl argue that the suffering is unavoidable, but we have the freedom to choose our attitudes towards it, the free will to find the meaning in life. However, as Buddhism and philosophies acknowledge karma as the central root cause of suffering, consequences of wrongful actions through every intentional thought, word, or action of one's past or present life, or it's a test of faith and path to self actualization. Philosophers like Soren Kierkegaard suggest stems from the gap between one's ideal self and one's actual self. The discomfort of this mismatch, combined with societal pressure to achieve an ideal, can lead to despair. The statement, which aligns with thinkers like Jane Paul, mentioning suffering arises when we confront reality with the bad faith. Abrahamic religions see the meaning of suffering is not a bad thing to be avoided, but as an opportunity, a test of faith, or a form of divine discipline that leads to spiritual growth and wisdom. The next dimension is society and culture, which provides a framework for understanding and responding to emotions. For example, many cultures have stigma surrounding mental health issues, viewing them as a sign of weakness or a moral failing, which discourage people from seeking help and forcing them to suffer in isolation, guilt, and shame, suppressing their feelings and the internal conflict. The root causes from family dynamics, including past trauma, abuse, and the strict parents of various social interactions, play a crucial role in shaping a person's ability to cope with emotions and stress. So, as the stresses due to poverty, miscommunication, discrimination, and lack of healthcare and education contribute absence of insight or ignorance, which lead to prolonged suffering as environmental factors and directly impacts mental and physical well-being of a person all throughout his or her lifespan, bringing suffocation to self and the others. The nature versus nurture debate acknowledges that both genetics and environment shape our personality traits which consist of emotions, feelings, and thoughts influencing representing person's behavior. However, all the discussed emotions are not functioning as one, but they feed on one another, exacerbate a painful reinforcing circle. For example, envy fosters self criticism. Self criticism perpetuates isolation, and isolation deepens insecurity. Likewise, this circle goes on. Breaking the circle of suffering involves addressing its psychological, biological, spiritual, and social roots. This process is not a single action but a conscious and sustainable effort to change how you react to and engage with your emotions, especially the negative emotions such as chronic emotional pain. Since our emotions, feelings and thoughts interpret our perception of the world. For example, when you identify that you get envious feeling for others, achievements or success in life, you have to understand that you need to develop self-worth focusing on internal values without looking at external comparisons, because all our emotions are triggered by external or internal events. For persistent struggles, mental health professional help and guidance should be taken. However, healing starts with acceptance and acknowledgement of the issue, honestly, without judgments or criticism, and commitment to new positive thinking patterns, focusing to live at the present moment, which gradually influence to leave behind maladaptive behaviors and consequently develop adaptive coping strategies. In order to adapt new constructive thinking patterns and behaviors, we have to break the negative feedback loop, which could be done through practicing mindful radical acceptance, a deep reflection through commitment by actively performing kindness, compassion, and gratefulness, as well as generosity, without expecting anything in return. Forgiving yourself and the others without holding on to chain linked to the past. Challenging negative thought patterns which come to mind due to generational trauma or any other root cause heals with willingness and could gain fulfillment focusing on self values, which would enhance perception and your motivation to experience genuine happiness in living in the present moment. We keep evolving through various kind of positive and negative emotions and feelings throughout our lives, isn't it? Which may sometimes result in unexpected turns in life, and still we try to find a meaning. Thank you, everybody. Let's meet in another episode. Face the world with perception that reflects what actually matters.